Hello 701 and welcome to Module 2, Trends in the World of Work. In this module, we're going to talk about organizational learning. We're going to talk about things that are going on in the workplace, things that are going on in the work world. All of this is really important for an instructional designer and learning technologist to know about because the types of learning and development that we will be responsible for, really varies depending on the context. And so really understanding our organization, understanding how business is done in that field, understanding, how things work, both internal to the organization and external, it's so very, very important. And so I'm going to start us out with talking a little bit about what organizational learning actually is. And so I want you to think about, just put aside any preconceived notions that you have about what organizational learning is. And I want you to focus on this right here. Organizational learning are the processes that an organization uses to improve itself over time. So oftentimes when we think about organizational learning, we think of the purposeful, intentional learning strategies or learning interventions that are put into place, things like training workshops and conferences and job aids and coaching and those sorts of things. But really, organizational learning is much more holistic than that. And it's the overall processes supporting continual improvement. So to illustrate this, I want to this is a very, very simple product development chart here, or flow chart. So product is developed through ideation, collecting ideas based upon needs, ideas, that sort of a thing. Then product or service is created. Then there's a pilot of the learning intervention, the service, or there's a prototype of the product. Then, based on how that's perceived, there are iterations, and then it's launched. And even after launch, there's continuous improvement. So what I'd like you to think about here is this key knowledge creation and collection milestones. And yes, we have these big points within the product development process, but these arrows represent key points in this product development process where knowledge is created, where it needs to be harvested or collected. And these are very salient points where this building of knowledge and sharing are crucial. And in a true culture of organizational learning, that sort of learning is planned for, that sort of learning is designed. But in most organizations, that doesn't happen. So what I'm trying to do with the intro to this module is help you start thinking about organizational learning. Yes, in terms of those interventions that we typically think about an instructional designer designing. However, those are situated within the overall organizational learning. So organizational learning has three central processes. The first is knowledge creation. Second, knowledge retention. And third is knowledge transfer. Now, I don't know about you, but in my workplace here at UW Whitewater, and among my colleagues who are teachers and also those who are working in program management and development. COVID has brought about quite a few retirements. And one of the things that I've repeatedly heard, both internal to UW-Whitewater and colleagues who have made comments, is something along the lines of, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to get by without so-and-so? When they go, the whole program goes, or when they go, no one knows anything. Essentially, that's a commentary on organizational learning and the three central processes involved in organizational learning. And when people say that, they're really saying, oh my gosh, we don't have any planned way of harvesting that information, that institutional knowledge. We have no way of sharing out that corporate memory or, again, institutional knowledge. And that's a problem. That is a big problem. So when I think about organizational learning, I think, well, either you see it or you don't. And most often, you don't. Most often, organizational learning is implicit. By that I mean there's really no meaningful connection to overall organization improvement. It's a collection of things. It's this buffet of established training. And we have, trust me, we have no shortage of established random trainings at Whitewater. Do you know you have to go through training in order to use a purchasing card? So our administrative department assistants who do the purchasing for us, they receive a credit card, a corporate card, to purchase things for our departments. And so they get that in the mail, but they can't use it until they have a training session that's a live training session with a real human who meets with them and has said training. Yep. There's a lot of that. And since I've taken this role as department chair this is the start of my second year, I'm continually taken aback by the things that we completely stop workflow so that training can happen. So I refer to this as just a random collection of training. So this can be about onboarding, employee benefits, compliance, software, accessing the computer system, could be initiative specific or project specific. This summer, I sat through hours of what was referred to as training on how to deal with, how to process furlough requests and how to help my faculty and staff in the event that there may have been a Family Medical Leave Act request. Again, random collection of things, really no synthesized plan or process, and also no real thought given to how that training is being developed, how that training is being delivered, the needs of the employees who are receiving it, so on and so forth. And that's because there's really no thought to how do these training sessions contribute to the overall improvement of the organization. Now, this is just us trying to get through the day. Then training. Oftentimes in an organization where there isn't a well-defined organization learning plan, training comes up as a reaction to events or as a reaction to situations. This could also be in reaction to trends and things like that. So one of the things here is that I've seen come up recently is now we all have to, those of us who are going to be involved in a search committee, trying to searching for a new candidate once our hiring freeze is over, we have to attend anti-bias training before we can do any of the work on that search and screen committee. Again, that looks like it's going to be a live and in-person sort of training. So we'll need to figure out how to also fit that into our schedule. The next is professional development. That's usually another category that we see in K-20 education. So from K-12 all the way up into higher education and extension, and all of us educational entities, we tend to have a category that's called professional development. And what I have been astounded by is that professional development, especially in higher ed, that is considered something that faculty and academic staff determine based on their individual goals and interests. This is professional development, not prescribed by the organization. It's not professional development intended specifically to, again, promote overall organization improvement. This is professional development. It's about the individual. Also, the thing that I've noticed, and the thing that's usually commented on about professional development, especially in K-12, is that the measurement here is on hours spent in professional development or days spent in professional development, rather than the contributions that the actual learning makes to improvements in the organization, improvements to outcomes, improvements to learning, that sort of a thing. And that's part of our culture in education. But this is in direct contrast to those organizations where you actually see an organizational learning plan. And typically, you see this woven into the strategic plan. You also see the organizational learning plan pointing to the mission vision of the organization and demonstrating how the learning that's taking place will contribute to the mission vision. Another characteristic is that it's integrated, it's connected, it's planned, and it's integrated, connected, and planned within and across the organization. And it's typically measured for outcomes. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's high stakes, but it typically does mean that there's an expectation that if investment in learning is going to happen, it needs to return an investment for the organization. ROI, return on investment. So what I hope is kind of sinking in here is that there's some real disconnects between what organizational learning could be and what it is. And that's awesome because that's job security. But I want to direct your attention to some of the current contextual challenges. And I'm sure you can think of a whole lot more based on what I just said. But this is more of a focused list that's going to help us with this module. So first of all, one of the challenges is creating a culture of learning. That learning is more of an afterthought. It's typically something that we do after we get done with our job or what we do for work. And the idea that somebody who was working, let's say a teacher would take an afternoon to engage in learning that's going to help them be a more effective educator with a certain group of students. That requires tremendous approval processes, doesn't it? Yeah, well, that's because the organization isn't really permeable, and teachers are quote unquote delivering. I was going to say delivering service, but I've recently been told that that's offensive. I apologize. Teachers are teaching, and their time is specifically allocated to working with those students during a specific time, and there is no flexibility in the system. So the next one is problem solving. And I think a lot of times we talk about organizations as, oh, we need to be accepting of failure. We're really drumming that into K-12 right now about, well, you have to be okay with failure. You need to have a growth mindset. Well, in reality, it's still really hard to fail. And it's still really hard to fail publicly. And it's also really hard to fail when there's a lot at stake. And so we can talk a whole lot about how, there is so much learning that happens when we're problem solving. Yes, that's true. What makes that specifically difficult is that problem solving oftentimes occurs because there has been a failure. And until we really disconnect or untangle the stigma of failure from the very rich learning that results from unpacking and resolving that failure, that's going to continue to plague us. In addition, processes, practices, and tools are lacking in the process of capturing, archiving, and retrieving knowledge that happens. And then I'm going to go into this next one, into the process, into the flow of work. So when I was, and I showed this slide here, where we've got ideation, creation, piloting, iteration, so on and so forth, that is the flow of work. We're not very good yet at putting structures in place to capture the learning that takes place in there. I'll get to that in a minute. And the buzzword that I had here in the final bullet point, dissemination in the flow of work. In the flow of work is huge right now. And what that means is that just like it's saying, yes, learning happens in the flow of work, but I want you to think about what that would look like. And one of the examples that I've seen recently is from Xerox, and it's about some of their copier scanner repair folks being out on the road and running into a technical problem that they just can't resolve. Well, they need access to knowledge right away so that they can fix the equipment that they're working on. And Xerox has gone to great lengths to disseminate learning in the flow of work. And I do have some examples of that, and hopefully I'll be weaving them into the course later on. So here is a quote that I absolutely love, that really, really solidifies the nature of what's going on in the workplace. And so I'm going to provide this quote for you, and then we're going to pick up in the next section with ecologies and ecosystems of learning and learning experience platforms. But for now, I'm going to leave you with organizations are adopting agile ways of working to cope with the fast-changing business environment. As a result, organizations need to rethink their learning strategy and move beyond formal learning experiences to continually reskill and upskill the workforce with personalized learning experiences integrated across and within the flow of work. And my pause and stumbling over personalized learning is because I know some of you are K-12 teachers and you're hearing personalized learning. Oh my gosh, we've got to do personalized learning. Yeah, transferability between the two career paths. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that thought, and the next video is going to focus, or is going to pick up from there, and it's going to focus on ecologies of technology and how we actually go about revising our organizations to beef up the organizational learning.